So what's the deal with New Year's Eve? Like, it's New Year's Eve here, but millions of people have already done New Year's Eve there in New York. So in the US, we have this, you talk to people and they go, well, when do you celebrate New Year's? At 9. But that's not New Year's. Oh yeah, it's 9 in New York, but it's not 9 here. No, it's not midnight here. Or if I'm in Hawaii, it's only 9 p.m. So does Hawaii celebrate New Year's at 6 p.m. because they watch CNN live and watch the ball drop at midnight? And so, but why don't we watch Big Ben chime at midnight and then go to bed at 2 in the afternoon?
That's not a bad idea.
Happy New Year, my friend.
Happy New Year. And actually, you go west from Hawaii and go to New Zealand. I think New Zealand is, they call it the country of first light.
That's right. Yeah.
And so they, every day, they're the country, the nation that actually brings in the next day the earliest. So
yeah, if I want to know the news, I got a buddy who lives in Wellington, and I just text him and I say, what happened today? And he just tells me. So
that's cool.
He's Dewey Freeman. I'm Mark Sylvester. We're the Elder
Good
Council.
morning and Happy New Year to everybody.
Oh my gosh. I remember with my software company, we were, animation software company. And our guy in Brussels said, we ought to claim a day in the year as our day. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, if we look at 3 December and we have 3D December, we can be the 3D day. This can be a day, we'll create a day for animators and visual effects people and modelers and anybody in the 3D world. That's our day, 3 December. I'm in love with this idea. This is pre, there was internet, but barely. And we didn't have things the way they are now. Now I sound like grandpa, but what we did was we were in 72 countries. We had offices in 30 of them and resellers and all the rest. We put out a blast. We put together a plan. Every city where there's a reseller is going to host a mixer, workshops, classes, bring in some of the animators from the local area and do talks and then have a nice party at the end. And we were going to do that all the way around the world. So, Auckland, Sydney, Seoul, Tokyo, boom, 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 boom. Because we Moscow, everywhere. Everybody was going to do this. It took, I don't know, months and months and months and months to plan. Somebody then on my team has the idea, okay, Mark, this is what we're going to do. You're going to be in Auckland where they were doing Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings had not come out yet. So that tells you how long ago this was.
Oh, wow. They were actually filming it at that time.
Yeah, they worked 5 years on it. I went there 2 or 3 times a year for 5 years to work on it.
Really? And on Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
Yeah. Know that.
Yeah. It was awesome. It was a secret too, because they didn't want anybody to know what tools they were using. And if you did follow 3D at the time, I was the tall white guy who was the founder of Wavefront. So I would come in, I had to, they'd pick me up, couldn't let anybody know I was in the country, and I would go work with their development team and be on location and see, and they say, see, this is what we're trying to do. And I'd go home and talk to the guys and said, here's the issues they're trying to solve. So our 2 development teams worked together to create software that had never been made before, but used in production over a 5-year period. It was super fun.
No kidding.
Yeah, super. It was so a little sidebar.
Incredibly fun.
Oh my God, it's just insanely fun. So I get a call. So I want to finish the story in that. So I'm there in Auckland. I convinced them to show a little bit. No one had seen anything. We get Jason, one of my guys from here in Santa Barbara, moved there to work on the film. He's still there, by the way. And we get him to speak. We're in this great great pub, sports pub in Wellington. It's lively, tons of people. It was so much fun. At 3, they put me in a car. So we do our live deal. At 3, they put me in the car, get me to the airport. I fly back to LA. I'm in LA at noon on the same day. It's still
Hmm.
3 December. Get me to the Biltmore Hotel downtown Los Angeles, and I kick off the last event in the cycle in Los Angeles.
No kidding. How cool
Yeah,
is that?
that was pretty cool. Pretty cool. But Lord of the Rings, very quickly, I get a call late one night, and it's the technical supervisor calling from location. He goes, "Mark, we're fucked." I go, what? He said, there's this one line in the book that says, and the river roars down and turns into a herd of galloping horses. And this is the crossing. Lord of the Ring nerds who are listening to this right now and know exactly what I'm talking about. It's very famous. And it's and they had brought in a guy who knew fluid dynamics, and
Hmm.
he wrote code to simulate that, and it worked, but it created a terabyte of data for every frame.
That's
So
huge.
think about that for a second. There's 24 frames per second, and it's a 6-second shot. So someone in the audience do the math, and it was taking 2 weeks to compute a frame.
Wow.
And now we're used to seeing 3D water. We don't think about it. We don't give it a second thought. Look, Google Avatar, Way of Water. Same company, by the way, and they have mastered Weta Digital down in Wellington. And he says, please tell me you guys are working on fluid dynamics. And I said, well, we've not announced anything. We have a very good NDA relationship and a development relationship. And I said, happen to have a guy, I got a guy up in Toronto. He's crushing it right now. And let's see if we can't mail him down there to you for a month, and let's sort this thing out. And they did, and the film got made, and it was super fun. But that was one of the highlights. I should probably write a story. I don't know if I'm allowed to write a story, uh, but I just told it.
Probably a difference between telling and writing
Yeah, probably. Today is a transition into what uh, I've been talking about. For about 2 weeks, I found myself having this recurring conversation. I'm one of those, there's two kinds of people in the people who say there's two kinds of people in the world, and the people who don't.
it. Okay.
Yeah, I'm one of those guys where there's two ways of things. There's this and this, there's yes and no, there's the binariness, right?
Hmm.
And I tend to hold a coin up and say on this side of it. So we've talked about this before. The learning coin has student on one side and teacher on the other. If you have one of those coins in your pocket, you're a lifelong learner. Sometimes you're a student, sometimes you're a teacher. If you're neither a student or a teacher, you do not have that coin in your pocket. Yeah. Well, the coin I've been flipping around recently is this notion that I think we can reduce the human condition, and I'm totally simplifying it to two things: in search of connection and recognition. And I think that I want to feel connected, that love. I want to be
Hmm.
community. I want to feel connected, a part of something. And the opposite of that is loneliness and isolation and all of that. So I want to feel that. But I also want to be recognized. Just and now we say, I want to be felt. I want to be seen. Right. That's another one.
Hmm.
It says, please see me. I see you. Right. But that ties into that word for me. And that's really helped me in some coaching and some mentoring around the role of leadership in making sure that we build we hold space for community. That's what I mean. We hold space for community to happen. And we become very free with our recognition, which is also another side of the gratitude coin, happens to live over there too, and be able to freely recognize people for their contributions, for whatever, just like, hey, recognize you. So as I say all that, I know that's triggering like 50 things. I can tell. I have X-ray vision.
Yeah, speaking of seeing, um, I actually hadn't thought so much about the recognition piece. What the wording I would use, and I think I've used this before, is we want to be seen, heard, and gotten. And I think in the recognition piece that you're speaking of would fit into the the I get you part. Um, the I think the being seen part is huge. Like just like seen for who you are,
Mhm.
and uh, being heard is also in my world incredibly important. I mean, it's actually what a lot of what you and I do with and for each other. And then I got it. I got you. I get who you are. I get what you're saying. I get what you're trying to do. And I think it is, as I'm thinking about it, um, being recognized, I think I hadn't thought about this way, but being recognized, I think, is a big part of being gotten.
It is. And let me add a little bit of color, but tell you a little story. So, as you know, we run an improv school here locally, carpinteriaimprov.com. That's our school at the Alcazar Theater. And it's a drop-in class. And we advertise, I have posters up and people know that we exist. So I work the front door on Tuesday nights, and this woman comes in. And I go, "Hi, how are you? Who are you? Don't recognize you." She goes, "Oh, I heard about you down in Ventura, which is about a half hour south of us. And I take classes there, but this looked like fun. So I'm here." And I was like, "Oh, great. Welcome." And so we get in. It feels like we always have one or two new people kind of all
Hmm.
the time cycling through. So we're on stage, and I'm just kind of paying attention to the new kids. When I say kids, I mean 30-year
Yeah,
olds.
yeah, I get it.
Uh,
I get it.
and this woman is making really fun choices about her characters, about the voice, about her physicality. And what happens is we typically, because we'll have 9, 10 people in class, two people do their little thing and just go to the end of the line. We just cycle through drills
Hmm.
and the stuff that we do. And she does her thing. It's hilarious. She comes back and gets in line right next to me. And I said, I just looked at her, and I always make sure I do eye contact,
Hmm.
because the funny thing about improvers, because they're typically, when they're not on, they're off,
Mm.
right? Being on stage is a way for them to be on. And then as soon as they're done, I've watched it thousands of times. They're like, okay, I'm on, I'm off. And I go back in line. They're just like this. And I look at her and I go, "You're really funny." She kind of perked up. Right. And then I don't want to I want to I think with recognition, it helps be specific. And I said, you're making really good choices tonight. And I love your characters. And you could watch her light up.
Mm.
And I didn't have to say that. I could just wait my turn and do the next thing.
Hmm.
But I think as a leader, recognizing that has the benefit of having her feel that we are a community and
Right.
we hold space for us all to be connected. And as we've talked about before, I've got your back is a thing we live that. And especially for someone who is going to come on stage and be vulnerable and do something and not know if it's going to be funny or people you don't know. So you have to have some enough ego strength to do that, but still it's scary, right? A lot of people are like, I'm not getting there and be funny. I'm not that way. And I think that is what it was 2 weeks ago. And it triggered me again, thinking about our role as leaders to create this space where everyone feels connected to one another, but then to individually recognize people quietly, not in front of anybody, very quietly do that. Doesn't cost us anything except having an intent and being present and being aware and listening and watching and knowing that that's really important to them. And that's a gift you can give them that doesn't cost you anything, but it is worth the price of gold to them.
Mm-hmm.
But so it's been really running around in my head as something really important as a sub theme for this year.
Yeah, I agree with you. Actually, while you were talking, I was like thinking back over the last year or two, especially with those people who are really important to me
Yeah.
when they say good job or I really appreciated X, Y, and Z. I mean, those kinds of things I I remember well. And um, I mean, one of my memories is I was working with Mark Brashett, who is the high level horseman that I work with, and we were doing a class working. Well, we'd done 3 or 4 days of working with cows, and I was riding Dylan and one of my horses, and um, at the end of that, he goes, "Got a pretty good little cow pony there, Dewey." And it was I mean, I remember that moment. I remember where I was. I mean, it was really um, yeah, I mean, those being recognized by those people who are important to us, especially. And one of the things I'm wondering about as I'm saying this is, um, what's your experience about being recognized from people who are being recognized by people who are important to you versus people that you maybe don't know or that just in your life they don't they're part of your life, but they're not that.
They're not inner circle.
Yeah, they're not inner circle. That's a good way to put it.
Two examples. So Kimberly teaches at the school. I'm the producer. She's the talent. There's a dog and pony show. She's the pony. I'm the dog. It's just how I bark a lot. Uh, there's another woman who started coming 3 weeks ago, lives locally, saw our poster on the marquee and at the theater and came in and she pulled Kimberly aside Tuesday night after class and she says, I have taken a lot of classes, Chicago, LA, New York. She's also quite funny, very physical, very lovely. Um, she says, I've taken a lot of classes. I am a facilitator myself of group activity. I don't teach improv, but I'm a facilitator. You are one of the best I've ever seen.
Mm.
And she gave Kimberly some specifics, which is what I think is important. If someone is not in the inner circle, but they're in the outer circle, and is it, hey, good job? That's kind of like saying, hey, how are you? Right? It's a
Hmm.
throwaway line. It doesn't mean anything. But if it's pulled aside, private and specific, then you're going to pay attention because it's a friend, a new friend. It's someone who may be in the inner circle later. They
Hmm.
just haven't been.
I haven't gotten there
Kimberly
yet.
was beaming because she was seen and heard and gotten
Right.
for her skill at managing, a bunch of introverted extroverts. And she told me afterwards, she says, oh, she pulled me aside and said that. I said, that feels awesome, doesn't it? She goes, yeah, it feels
Hmm.
great. And then I was talking to someone yesterday whose wife um, was in one of our storytelling school programs, with the short little 1 month program we do. And he thanked me again because we did it as a house favor. Hey, she's our guest, be in this week.
Hmm.
She said, that was 6 months ago. She's still talking about Kimberly. And she says she has Kimberly way, way up on this pedestal up here. And she just, and then he just rattled off just a list of things that stuck with this woman about her, very specific things. And
Hmm.
I enjoyed being able to tell her afterwards about that. And I think where I'm going with all of this is I hope that people listening to this understand how important it is, how easy it is, and why you shouldn't be flying so fast through life that you don't stop for a second to recognize the contributions of the people around you to your life, to your project, to your team, to the thing that you're doing collectively as community, because that's how you build community.
Mm. When you speak of community, and I agree with everything you just said, when you speak of community, what does that mean to you? Because a
It's
lot of people have different definitions. And for those
I,
who are listening, I want them to sort of get
I
that.
think community could be two people, right? It's a connection. I think community is people engaged in a singular activity that they've opted into, and that they're there, and you can find at least one thread that ties them together. And
Hmm.
typically what happens, as we've talked about with relationship, so it's relationship writ large, where you end up having multiple threads that connect you. It's bonding. There's all kinds of stuff about bonding, crisis bonding, grief bonding. There's all kind of project bonding. We're all working together for this thing. It's a bit of the gamification of life, right?
The
We,
what?
we the gamification of
Okay, I've
life.
not heard that word before.
So I was in the electronic game business, providing tools to the guys who made every game that everybody's playing right now. There are a lot of
Mm.
gamers who listen. Parts of that stuff were all done in Maya, and so I know those people. For 30 years we worked with Nintendo and Sony, and worked
Hmm.
with game theorists and game scientists and game designers and all that stuff to understand what is it about the gaming that keeps people engaged, because that's what you want. You want them to keep being engaged.
Hmm.
So from that, there was learning that turned into what's called serious games. So using the rules of games in things that aren't games. War games is a good example. Um, but gamification is the act of applying those rules to an activity. There's 5 of them.
Mm.
Okay. People freely opt in. There's established rules. There's an established leader. There's a scoreboard, and people have fun. Those are the 5
Mm.
things. It's called gamification. So if you're conscripted into something that it's not a game, it's a job.
Got
But
it.
if I opt in, cool. And what are the rules? Oh, well, we're going to all be on stage, and we're going to do things when teacher Kimberly tells us to do stuff, and she's going to give us the rules of the game. Okay, in this scene, you're going to say something mundane and you're going to react to it. Okay, in the next one, so we know some rules, and the scorecard is done by laughter in that case, right? How'd you do it?
Mm.
People,
Hmm.
everybody's cracking up. And there's a leader, our teacher, Kimberly, and and we're all having fun. So we've gamified the learning of these skills so that collectively we can all get better at improv. And I've just, that's so baked into my DNA now, having done this for so many years,
Mm-hmm.
that I think about how do we, I see it everywhere, how people have gamified an experience. Because what happens is if you hit all five of those, people come back because they like playing the game.
Got it. Hmm. That's pretty interesting. How does that fit into community for you?
So one of the results of that is we feel like a team. So I think team and community is the same.
Um,
It's the same. I'm on a team. I'm in a team at work. Is that a small community? Heck yeah. Heck yeah. Does it have all the things that we need from community love and connection and recognition? Got your back, working together, scorecard. We're making our numbers, we're making our product, we're making the goal, we're making the thing. There's a way to keep track of that so we feel like we've achieved things. It's not just mindless drone work. It's not that at all.
mm-hmm.
We know what the rules are. Whether you and I have talked about written rules, unwritten rules, right?
Right.
They're clearly rules. We know that, and we're freely there. I'm freely working at this place. I can leave anytime I want. So I see community and collective action is another aspect of community. It's people coming together for a thing, and then what happens if that tie is strong enough, more ties will develop until they become closer and closer knit. To continue with that red thread analogy,
Mm-hmm.
you get more
Mm-hmm.
and more and more, and you get like this, and you're friends forever. And you didn't start out that way, but you you recognize, hey, that was really good. I like that play. Oh my God, that thing you said, or gosh, I was noticing how you use the trowel and line the bricks. Where'd you learn that? Oh, here, let me show you. I learned,
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah. So I think when you have an environment where people feel safe, that's important. It's an important
Mm-hmm.
precondition to all of that, whether it's in a relationship, do I feel safe with this person? Or it's in collective action, I feel safe with these people. And we're now have to have that. And then we go and do a thing.
Community to me, I like what you just said. So this is a yes and. Community to me means that you're part of something that you don't have to continually ask permission to be part of.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. You're in the
And
house.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, what I'm thinking of is obviously most people know that we get a fair amount of snow up here. And I have a pretty substantial Bobcat machine that I have a gigantic 6 foot wide snowblower on.
Wow. 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 Wow.
And there are people that are in our neighborhood that we have great relationships, and we've had great relationships for years with. And if we get a ton of snow and I'm down on the road plowing or something or snow blowing, I'll just go into their drive and clear out their drive. It takes me, with that machine, I can do in 10 minutes what would take 3 to 4 hours of shoveling to do. And I don't have to ask. I don't have to say, hey, is it okay to clean out your driveway? Is it okay to be on your property? Is it okay to, and we have neighbors where our properties are adjacent, where we feed each other's animals. When we're out of town, Kimberly will go over on the side of their part of the mountain and do classes and stuff like that. There's another neighborhood that has a huge pasture that he says, yeah, if you want to throw your horses in here sometime, feel free. I don't have to ask permission. Um, and that I know that it would be okay. I mean, the same way with I mean, you and I call each other periodically in between these calls. It's like we don't say, "Hey, Mark, is it okay to call you?" We just do it. If you're free to answer, you do. If you're not free, you don't, and then we connect in later. Um, but there's some sense of knowing that you're part of something that you don't have to ask permission to enter.
That's the first condition you've opted in,
Ooh, yes, exactly.
right?
Well, but it's also that you're invited in. Um,
Sure. You're invited to participate. Yes,
right,
we'd
right,
love to
right,
have you in this, and then you make the decision whether you want to opt into that thing or not.
right. There's an opening there that you can
Yeah,
do that.
exactly. And we've talked about creating openings as well,
Mhm.
right? It's what's interesting is this notion of gamification um, came from deep study of human behavior. So this was not something related to video games. It was like these are five fundamental things that make it work. If you do these five things, it's going to work. And
Mhm.
that's by studying humans, right?
Mhm.
And specifically,
Right.
they one would say it contributes to addictive behavior, right?
Well, it certainly can.
Yeah,
Clearly.
yeah, right. Because that scoreboard is, oh, I gotta get the next level. I gotta get the next thing. That can be a part of the motivating force.
Well, but the difference though is with addictive behavior, if it's a true addiction, we end up not having choice.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, fair enough.
We don't have, it's like there's something that we're going for that is not a part of our literally opting in or opting
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's a different show.
Yeah, that's a different show. I just wanted to make, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
because I mean, one of the things that I do worry about with for instance, some of the online gaming is that there are people who have studied addictions enough to know how to get people addicted to those.
Yes. Yeah.
And and so there's a huge piece around choice here that makes, and if we're talking about community, there's a huge piece around choice.
I what you're making me think of, and I'm going to table this to maybe talk about it at a different time because my home life predates my game of choice was pinball machines till 2 in the morning. Right? I could play pinball till back in the day, and I kind of I didn't grow up with and that's what's around when you're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Didn't and I'm older. My grandson and his dad play games so much together and individually. So it's connected them, but it's to the exclusion of mom, my daughter, who doesn't play. And she's told me, she said, "Oh, I could leave, go get coffee, go for a run, go whatever, and come back." And they're like, "Oh, were you gone?"
Hmm.
Right. And one of our team members in our house team has four boys and a husband who she says is her fifth boy. And they're in the basement literally playing games from the time they wake up to the time they go to sleep, except for eating and school
Oh,
and
wow.
work. And to the point to where she is emotionally isolated and loves if we were doing stuff 5 nights a week, she'd be with us 5 nights a week because we are her connection to humans who are
Right,
paying
right,
attention to
right.
her. Different show.
Different shows.
But I understand, and I think people who pay attention to these things see the same behavior with social media, Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and
Mhm.
all of that stuff, where kids are getting their being seen, feeling heard, and feeling gotten through that, right?
Yeah.
It's like people see me through my likes. I'm heard. They're listening to my shit. They get me. They like my stuff. I'm an influencer and all that. Yet they're literally sitting there with their friends, and all their friends are on their phone doing their thing with their virtual friends, and yet not talking to one another. A different show, right? But that's the reality of what's going on right
Yeah. So maybe in wrapping up, it's like talking about what we might call real community, where we're making real contact with those who we're around versus some other, and I don't know what the right word is. I don't want to, almost like a pseudo community or pseudo.
I would say it's the difference between virtual and in person. Like, we're breathing the same air and we're sweating and we're working together and we literally have each other's back. That's the sense of human connection that I'm talking about in
Yes.
is in the workplace, on stage, in the wherever it is. See someone, recognizing them, giving them a hug, telling them you love them, and you haven't seen them for a couple years. There's a lot of that going on post COVID. Once you get out, you're like,
Mhm.
God, I haven't seen you. How are you doing? How did you survive? And all of that. Versus the people who have very active virtual lives, very active, right? And they've never met the people in person,
Right.
right? Or sometimes not even ever seen them. They've only ever seen their avatar. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't feel connected, but I think you and I are talking about in person connection.
Absolutely.
My friend, I love our conversations. And
Yeah.
I
This
hope
is
our
great.
audience does. I think that the ability of us to pull on a thread on Saturday mornings and see where it leaves us is
It's
very, very
fantastic.
fun.
Yes. Thank you, sir.